Every fan had dreamed for this fairy tale ending. The matriarch of the Little People Big World dynasty, Amy Roloff, finally found love after years of heartbreak and strife. Her wedding to Chris Marr, which took place on the property where so much of her past was stored, was a picture of joy. A fresh start, a new life, a new partner. It appeared ideal. What if, however, the grins were a show? What if the entire wedding was about to fall apart only a few days before they said, "I do"? Under the strain of a brutal, covert conflict? A conflict over trust, money, and an unexpected demand that exposed Chris Marrick's true nature. Information from people very close to the wedding planning process has reached us. People who saw the intimate conflict going on behind the scenes. They asserted that a surprising and nasty argument over a prenuptial agreement had almost destroyed the foundation of this marriage before it had ever started. Chris's secret was revealed during a fight, and a demand was so avaricious that Amy felt deceived and appalled. Press the like button immediately if you were surprised to learn that this fairy tale has such a sinister secret. Show the YouTube algorithm that viewers need to know what was truly going on behind the scenes and that the truth counts. Because the specifics of this story are explosive and you don't want to miss our follow-up investigation, make sure you have clicked the notification bell and are subscribed to LPBW Update. Okay, let us set down the chronology of this covert crisis. You must comprehend Amy's financial situation at the time in order to comprehend the stakes. She just made a multi-million-dollar sale of her share of Roloff Farms. This was more than a bank account number. She declared her independence with this. It was the retirement fund she had amassed over the course of 30 years of tears, sweat, and public life. It was her power, her heritage, her security. She owned it. Of course, with millions of wealth and a wedding approaching, the concept of a prenuptial agreement was brought up. According to our sources, Amy was initially persuaded to safeguard her possessions by her kids, especially Zach and Jeremy. It had nothing to do with mistrusting Chris. It has to do with intelligence. In order to secure the funds intended for her and her children's future, it was a typical legal precaution. Amy, a sensible woman, concurred. She asked Chris about it, anticipating a frank discussion. She believed that they would meet with attorneys, sign the documents, and forward with organizing their joyous occasion. She was completely incorrect. Chris's entire attitude shifted when Amy first brought up the term prenuptial agreement. The relaxed, endearing grin disappeared. He became insulted, defensive, and hurt. He allegedly played the victim and turned it back on her. "You don't trust me after all this time," he remarked. "Do you believe I'm a gold digger of some sort? I believed that our relationship was based on love rather than contracts." He was attempting to control emotions, to make her feel bad about taking responsibility. Despite her surprise, Amy insisted that it was merely a legal formality. However, Chris refused to let it go, and his adamant resistance sent a serious warning signal to Amy's inner circle. What was causing him to fight so hard? The first shocking revelation in this article is the solution, according to our source. Chris had a huge secret debt that he was concealing. According to what we've been told, Chris had a huge amount of personal debt from a previous unsuccessful real estate endeavor. Never told Amy everything. He hoped that his new life with Amy and her newfound wealth would just wipe out the black shadow from his past. This would have been revealed by a prenup. It would have legally segregated her assets from his financial baggage, leaving him to handle it alone. Chris's desperation allegedly escalated into violence when Amy insisted on continuing with the lawyers after his attempts at emotional manipulation failed. When he realized he was in a corner, he fell. His demand was the second, more startling bombshell. Chris outlined his terms in a contentious discussion with the lawyer in attendance. If a prenuptial agreement had 2 catastrophic clauses, he would sign it. He first insisted that his entire outstanding debt be paid off right away using Amy's inheritance. He desired to enter the marriage with a fresh start, funded by her. However, it was the second demand that left Amy gasping for air. He insisted on a provision that would give him half of all of her future profits, half of her pay from Little People, Big World, half of any book deals, half of any fees she receives for public appearances, and half of any business she starts. He wasn't merely attempting to pay off his previous debts. He was attempting to guarantee himself a steady income for the rest of his life, transforming his partner, Amy Roloff, into his own moneymaker. He saw a golden goose when he looked at her. According to our informant, there was complete anarchy following the meeting. Amy was heartbroken. She wasn't with this dude. Believed she was aware. This cutthroat negotiator saw their marriage as a commercial merger in which he had complete control. Their mutual trust was destroyed. Unofficially, the wedding, which was only a few weeks away, was cancelled. "I can't do this," Amy allegedly said to her closest friends. "A man who views me as an investment is not someone I can marry." The attorneys were unable to move. The family was in disarray. They were on the verge of collapse due to Chris's greed. They were in the midst of a contentious, high-stakes court case. Fight while feigning to the cameras that everything was a glorious fairy tale. How, therefore, did we get from a cancelled wedding and a sour legal battle to the joyous celebration that we all witnessed on television? What took place to heal such a great rift in those last days? The secret compromise, a last-minute addition to the pren that we are told is a ticking time bomb, holds the key to the solution. Chris received something else, even though he didn't receive his 50%. Something Amy, under a lot of stress and devastated, ultimately consented. Even worse, one of Amy's own kids learned about the unpleasant conflict and the startling requests. A familial betrayal that has been festering ever since they attempted to halt the wedding themselves. We will disclose the hidden poison pill clause that Chris was able to include in the final pre-NUP in Part 2 of our inquiry. We will reveal which of Amy's children confronted her and begged her not to carry out the plan after learning the truth. Additionally, we will discover the terrible effects this covert conflict is currently having on their marriage. Keep checking the LPBW update. It's time to reveal the truth about the ID. The horrible hidden fight that nearly ruined Amy and Chris' wedding before it even started is revealed by us. We exposed that Chris Merrick had made a startling demand during their pre-end-up negotiations and was concealing a huge secret debt behind the fairy tale smiles. He desired half of Amy's future profits. They were driven to the limit by their betrayal and avarice, as well as the covert cancellation of the wedding. The most important question of all was left for you. How did their lovely wedding ceremony turn out after a tense court battle? A pleasant compromise is not the solution. Pressure, desperation, and a ticking time bomb concealed in the fine print are all themes in this tale. It was a vicious standoff. Amy was devastated because she believed the man she loved had shown a sinister, cunning side. Chris found himself in a tight spot. His financial despair was exposed. The wedding was off. The deposits were located at danger. Fans and the network anticipated a fairy tale. There was a great deal of pressure. The last frantic days were detailed by our source, who was close to the negotiations. Amy refused to back down from the 50% requirement. That broke the arrangement. She described it as being similar to indentured servitude. Chris eventually backed down from that demand after recognizing he had overplayed his hand and was going to lose everything, but he wasn't going to leave with nothing. He returned with a fresh idea. An alternative type of clause. Something more subdued, but possibly even more pernicious over time. Our source refers to this as the poison pill provision. With one significant exception, Chris consented to keep his money separate and relinquished his rights to her future profits. He suggested a unique sunset clause. When a prenuptial agreement contains a normal sunset clause, it simply sunsets after a predetermined number of years of marriage. Chris had a different version. According to reports, he insisted on a very short timeline, just 5 years. The prenuptial agreement would be nullified after 5 years of marriage. This is the poison pill, though. The condition also stated that he would be eligible for a sizable lump sum payment if the marriage failed before the 5-year mark for any reason other than his own adultery. We are informed that the sum is an astounding 7-figure sum. Is the trap he laid visible? He put Amy in a predicament where she couldn't win. He has a legal claim to her assets in the event of a divorce if they remain married for 5 years. If she departs from him before 5. To get rid of him, she must give him a check for millions of dollars over the course of years. He effectively constructed a golden parachute for himself, ensuring that he would always leave as a wealthy man. It was legal compromise cloaked in financial extortion. Amy, against her better judgment, accepted under extreme pressure because the wedding date was approaching and she didn't want to deal with the humiliation of a cancellation in public. She put her signature on it. The secret was not kept, but the wedding was resumed. One of her kids discovered the unsightly. Jeremy Roloff was the one who engaged in combat in the last toxic clause. According to our expert, Jeremy learned of the situation from a worried family acquaintance. Jeremy has always been guardians of the family's financial and business heritage. He was appalled. As a trap, he recognized the deadly pill for what it was. Chris had cornered his mother, he thought, and exploited her wish for a happy conclusion. According to reports, Jeremy drove to Amy's residence for a private emotional exchange. It wasn't furious. Similar to Zach's encounter in our previous stories. It was an urgent request. He pleaded with his mother not to carry it out. "Mom, please don't sign this," he allegedly said. "Are you blind to what he's doing? You're locked in by him. This isn't affection. You will undoubtedly lose this business contract. Simply leave. Being ashamed now is preferable to being imprisoned for the rest of your life." Amy, who was already devoted and worn out from the battle, felt deceived by her son's help. She interpreted it as him not encouraging her to be happy. A severe gulf was formed between them as a result of their awful quarrel. Our source claims that this gap has never completely healed. We are informed that Jeremy and Audrey's wedding grins were a terrible show for their mother. She was walking straight into the trap they had warned her about, and they were watching her do it. Thus, the wedding took place. The images were stunning. After a flawless episode of the show, the poison pill clause started to start working its wonders right away. Since then, it has hung over their marriage, producing a toxic dynamic from which we are currently witnessing the consequences. Consider it. The clause is the unspoken problem in every debate they have, every dispute they have. Amy is aware that it will cost her a fortune if she pushes too hard or defends herself too much, and Chris decides to depart. In a sense, her own marriage is holding her financially captive. This explains a great deal of the current events. The reports, the fake smiles. Of stress, the accounts of Chris's domineering actions. Why does she not simply go? He constructed the cage because of the prenup, and she voluntarily entered it. Now, she realizes the door has been locked behind her. The repercussions are disastrous. According to our sources, Amy's alleged financial difficulties are actually caused by the stress of this circumstance. Bad investments aren't the only issue. It's about this payout's ever-present menace. It stops her from taking any risks. Since the TLC payout is her sole reliable source of money, financial moves keep her bound to it in order to shield her from the consequences. There is still a rift with Jeremy. He believes he was correct all along, and he finds it difficult to see his mother deal with the fallout from her decision. A secret that originated in a lawyer's office causes the family to become estranged. Therefore, the fairy tale wedding was actually a contract signing. A deal that promised one party would get wealthy and the other would be stuck. The prenuptial dispute wasn't merely a hiccup. It was what made their connection unique. After the truth was revealed, they were legally bonded together in a system that prioritizes control over love. The 5 years are running out, and each day that goes by brings the poison pill one step closer to its disastrous end. We appreciate your participation in LPBW Update. You would never believe how complicated this family's story is. As we proceed, be sure you are subscribed to monitor the consequences of this startling discovery.